everybody, welcome back to the Chaotic Little Book Corner. My name's Acacia. Today we're going to be doing my Part 1 September wrap-up, and we're going to just jump right in with the 3 books that I read for the Slowathon with Amanda Center as my partner. We buddy read all 3 of them together. We read this one first. This is a collection of poetry based around sexual assault and the stages after the rape occurs. This is The No One You Will Never Listen To by Maggie Royer. I loved it. I absolutely recommend it 110%. And when you purchase it, the proceeds go to RAINE, which RAINE is RAINE.com or org. There's actually a list in the back of this book of sexual assault websites that do give support and attention to people who are sexual assault survivors, and it is RAINN.org. They do have a sexual assault hotline available online to the public, and it is 24/7. It helped me a lot in my worst times of crisis. I highly recommend this collection, and I highly recommend just purchasing it to support such a wonderful cause. This book was beautiful, eloquent, stunning, and absolutely one of the best and most honest depictions of sexual assault aftermath I've ever encountered, and it was terrifying and glorious and absolutely heart-wrenching. Highly recommend. Next we have this. This was a reread for me. This is Our Endless Numbered Days, and this is by Claire Fuller. I've read this before. I'll link my full review of it down below. I read this back in January already once, and this is my second read of it. I liked it just as much. 5-star read. I got a lot out of it on the second read through. Very happy I did so. This last one is Pond. This is a short story collection. I absolutely adored this. I picked it up specifically for the readathon, and I really wasn't sure if it was worth it because I paid a little more, because I wanted this edition, first of all, and second of all, I just picked up the edition that I had available to me in my local area. This book was fantastic. It is a short story slash poetry collection slash internal monologue, basically, for me, of a woman who is living on her own and trying to survive in the world on just a day-to-day basis, and it seems fantastically stunning, wonderful, and exquisite. It takes place in Ireland, and I absolutely got some feels from it of like just the day-to-day mundanity of life, as well as just the idea of being a female and being on your own and living life just as it is and not trying to be anything exquisite, and in doing so it became exquisite and beautiful and touching and wonderful and astounding. Next we have this. I've done a full review as far as Harley Quinn goes for the idea of Harley Quinn as a psychology. I will link it down below. This is Suicide Squad. This is the official novelization of the film, and it's by David Ayer. I read this in like 2 or 3 days. It's pretty long, but it is a mass market paperback, so it's like 400 pages in mass market, which is probably like 150 to 200 pages in like a regular sized book. I really enjoyed it. I think it's actually more based on the script from the original take on Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad had a release and then it screened and it didn't go the way they wanted it to, I think. And so they put in like all these little jokes and quibs, and then the Joker and Harley had a relationship that was more romantic. I love the film. I think it's fantastic. I've seen it 4 times. I absolutely plan to continue to see it and purchase it the day it comes out. However, that being said, I think that this version of it was a much more accurate depiction of the Suicide Squad as a whole, as far as the comic versions go. I think it's also a more accurate depiction of the DC comic version of those characters in their comics and their original stance. I myself am very curious to get more into the character, the Enchantress. I'm very interested in her as a person, and her character being June. June is I think she's an archaeologist or an anthropologist, and she gets taken over by a evil force, and I really want to learn more about June's character as an overall person. So I really enjoyed this. It was a 4-star read for me. Just great, really fun, enjoyable, and dark. Next, I read this. This is The Suicide Shop. I was sent this by Gallic Press. This is by Jean Tuel. It is a French book, if I'm correct, and it is translated by Sue Dyson. I adored this. It was absolutely fantastic. I saw it on Mercedes' channel way back when, and I always wanted it because she described it as the Addams Family meets kind of a sitcom sort of thing. It was fantastic. The story was lovely and quick and quirky, and it was just comical and weird. It takes place in a suicide shop, which is run by a family of people. They are called the Tuvash family. They are a generational family of suicide shop owners, and what they specialize in is giving people who want to commit suicide the proper tools to allow them to do it in the most easy way possible. Now, while this sounds terrifying, awful, and really, really in bad taste, it is actually not. It is a beautiful, accurate depiction and conversation about the idea of suicide, what happens to people when they commit suicide, what happens to people after the fact of suicide, what happens to people leading up to suicide. You get to see people coming in really bad spaces in their head, and the thing that is very fun about it is that there is a character in this. Their youngest son is a child who is actually very well-spoken, loving, and adorable, and he's very chipper and happy, and this is not how the family wants their children to behave. They want them to be dark and weird and morbid. My favorite character, though, out of all of them, was definitely the daughter. I cannot, for the life of me. Oh my goodness, what was her name? Anyway, the daughter in this is such a Wednesday Addams, but the thing about her that I love is that she's described as plump and plus size, and her youngest brother, who is the very happy and chipper one, keeps telling her she's beautiful, and she wants so badly to believe that she's worth something and beautiful, but her mother is determined to teach her to be dark and weird and morbid like the rest of the family. I adored it. It was a really interesting book, and I think it was really funny, even though it was a really weird subject matter. For people who have relationships like I do with suicide in the past, or have had suicidal ideations, it's actually a really beautiful adaptation to kind of talk about the people who get into that mindset and how they are very much lost and harmed, and they deserve help and not judgment. It's really beautiful. I really enjoyed it. Next, I was sent this for review by Picador, and I will have a couple of other books. I have another book from Picador that I will be reviewing for them soon. This is Children of the New World. This is Alexander Weinstein's short story collection. It is a sci-fi story collection of people in the future talking about social media and memory and how things are changing. I adored it, loved it, 4 stars, solid for me. I can't say that it's my all-time favorite short story collection, but it is definitely up there, and it always is nice for me to find a sci-fi kind of writer or person that I enjoy. I will definitely be picking up the rest of the books written by this author if I can get my hands on them. As soon as I can get my hands on them, I think this was brilliant, well executed, and extremely intelligent. The conversations around this, discussing the ideas of video games and alternate universes and not alternate universes, alternate realities, and weirdness and quirks of things being taken over by AIs and other things of that nature, the idea of science taking over our life more than it should, and so on and so forth, was absolutely well executed, professionally done, and I adored it. Next, we have this. I actually had a really good reading month, which was really, really nice. This was absolutely a riot. I loved this. This is The Gentle Man by Forrest Leo. This is a novel. I was sent it for review by Penguin Press. I flippin' adored this. This is a Victorian novel, sort of like steampunk-esque side of feel. It is gothic, it is weird, it is warped. It is the story of a man who has a wife. He loved her, and then he didn't love her, and then she gets taken by the devil, and he has to go after her with his sister, who keeps getting kicked out of boarding schools, swashbuckling Buddhists, who are like the best thing ever, and then a few others, including his random butler, and it's just sassy and weird and awkward, and it's kind of like the Sherlock Holmes-esque kind of bite of humor that you get in the BBC version that you see on, for me, I see it on like PBS and stuff, but it's just a riot, and it's so tongue-in-cheek and funny and comical and smart and witty, and it has some great like statements about the environment and the overall like human nature. It's prime. Fantastic. I'm in love with it. Then there's this. I read a graphic novel. This is Bombshells. This is the volume 1. I plan to read volume 2. I already own it. I read this in order to kind of explore the idea of Harley Quinn, but I ended up really enjoying this comic book. Now, first of all, I am a huge fan of the 1940s pinup style, and I did end up buying 2 of the figurines from this collection. One of them is Harley, and one of them is Wonder Woman, which are in the 1940 pinup style look. I adore that look, so the art and the idea of how it was drawn was really fun to me. I wasn't looking at it as like, I honestly don't usually really enjoy this style art, but because it was the 1940s sort of style of clothing, I really enjoyed it. It was a Rosie the Riveter meets superhero women meets Nazi Germany, fun, fabulous, wonderful, kick butt kind of story. I absolutely adored it. If you are a strong feminist and you love the DC world, but you haven't found your right superhero or supervillain that you can back, this is wonderful. There is some LGBTQ characters in here that are well executed and well done and don't seem forced. I just loved it. Last, certainly not least, is this. This is Pull Me Under by Kelly Luke. I was sent this by Farrar Straus&Giroux, and I super love this. This takes place in a time where a woman, she was sent to a mental health facility because she stabbed her bully and he died. And she is the daughter of a kind of like ambassador or really well-renowned Japanese gentleman and a woman who is from America, and her mother moved to Japan to be with her father and ended up committing suicide. And this is the relationship that she ends up coming to terms with on her own about herself and her grief about her mother. And she kind of, in the very first few chapters, she's in the mental health hospital. She is coming to terms with the fact that she's murdered someone, the fact that her mother died of suicide, and the fact that she feels really distant from her father. When she is released from this mental health hospital, it's been like 8 or 10 years. She's about 25 at the time, and she ends up moving across the ocean all the way back to the US, back where her mother was from, until her father shows up on her doorstep and she has to choose between the life she's made with a husband and child and the life that she left behind with her father as a person who is ambassador-like to the Japanese culture, and decide which culture and world she really prefers to be in. I enjoyed it. I thought it was beautifully done, really well executed. It was something that was really different, and it wasn't like a normal mental health story where you come to terms with the fact that the person has recovered and they're just done. There's a lot of aspects of it that were really well done, that the trauma really never goes away and it really never is solved, and that you really just live with it for the rest of your life. And I absolutely loved that aspect of it, and I plan to pick up anything else Kelly Luke comes out with. It was fabulous. That is my part 1 wrap up. I actually really had a great why can't I work? Word. Really great first part of the month. It wasn't the most I've ever read, but I really enjoyed everything I read, so I'm totally down with that. I'm all for it. Yeah, I will see you guys in my next video. I will talk to you soon. Bye, guys.